So, yesterday we got through section one, which gave us some sample backgrounds you could use for your pilot and some information about what you get for leveling your pilot. So this is more about the structure. Looks like we got a little twin there. So missions, downtime. Play sessions are typically structured around missions. Mission always has one clear goal and clear stakes. You'll establish both of these before you jump into action. There's something that needs doing, and it probably needs done fast. This creates a natural tension in the story that can only be resolved through the actions of the players. Without player intervention, the outcome will be radically different, most likely worse. Each mission starts with these 3 steps. Briefing. The goal is established by the GM, and the GM sets the stakes. Preparation. Players build their mechs, pick pilot gear, and make any other preparation. And reserves. Players establish the reserves they are bringing on the mission, which I don't think it's really set up what reserves are yet. Boots on the ground. The player arrives at the scene. At the end of the mission, whether it was a success or not, the pilots debrief, level up, and go to downtime, which is the narrative space between missions where they can undertake projects, progress their personal story, and prepare for the next mission. Missions, depending on their size, can last for a whole play session or even several. It's possible too, though unlikely, that your group could do multiple missions in a single session. The following sections explain each of these steps in a little more detail, starting with the structure of the first session. The first session. Before you start playing, it's a good idea to spend some time introducing the pilots and any pre-existing relationships between them. This section has some techniques and prompts for figuring out how your characters have come together as a group. Once you've figured out enough detail about your characters and why they're together, you should start the first session with the mission brief. If some players don't quite have an angle on their characters, it's perfectly fine to start the first session without firmly establishing anything. In fact, many groups prefer to flesh out their characters by playing through the first session and seeing what happens. Who are we? So, once again, it's giving you some random prompts that you could use. I think, you'd probably want to maybe come up with something a little bit more specific on your own, or maybe, roll one of these and then come up with the specific details. And then here, there's a table with some example prompts that you can use if you don't feel like creating your own. Just some different options there. And then, again, just a table for helping you come up with some options for your personal history. So I guess I'll read this part though. Lastly, you might want to flesh out some history and relationships between the pilots. Adding personal history between characters results in more meaningful role-playing. That said, it's perfectly fine to start without any history. There are a couple ways you can quickly build some personal history. Go around the table and take turns. You know, I wouldn't have mind, actually. I guess this would be my own personal hack. Fiasco has very good rules for establishing that sort of thing. I think I would, or you could incorporate the Monster Hearts rules. Monster Hearts also just has just quite good rules for establishing relationships between characters and making it a source of drama and tension. So, stage 1 briefing. Don't know why it's just not wanting to focus in today. Stage 1 briefing. The mission briefing takes place at the beginning of every mission. This is when your pilots sit down around their consoles or in their cockpits, a boardroom, or a barracks somewhere. Again, it's just, they like to do this a lot. They'll just give you like every possible option where, I don't know, I guess it's helpful to make you think of ideas, but I don't think it's that helpful if you're just like, oh, this is where, I don't know. I do like their intentions of helping you come up with these story prompts for your own, but I don't know, when you throw everything at the wall. Anyways, the scene doesn't have to be an actual in-character briefing. It can be a conversation between the players and then you're telling you it doesn't have to be in story anyways. Yeah, I feel like they do this a lot where they'll give you something and then immediately walk it back. The situation. The GM should present as much information about the situation on the ground as they deem relevant. Can be in depth or short. Okay, the goal. Regardless of the information given, the goal is what the players hope to accomplish with their mission. This might be the same as the objectives that they're given, or it could be completely different. For example, you might get a mission from a powerful general to hold a checkpoint against rebels. But like if you're secretly rebellion guys, you might not, depending on, if you feel tarnishing your reputation is worth it. Players might define a goal without any orders or directions from the GM. A mission's success depends on the completion of the goal, but missions can end without it. Indeed, some missions end so poorly that leaves players or their factions worse off before they embarked. Whether or not a mission is successful, characters that survive the mission always get a license level. So I do like it. this concept of setting up for failure, and that, the game uh, kind of continues regardless of your failure rate. Again, it really doesn't look like it's focusing in on this, but it maybe just a list of goals. It's also possible for a goal to change mid-mission. Maybe more information comes to light, or there is a shift in the mission circumstances or parameters. This is normal, helps to create dynamic stories. No plans break down. The stakes. Once you've chosen a mission goal, it's time to set the stakes. The outcome's insignificant. The stakes are decided by the GM, but they're strongly influenced by the character's history, and goals. So it gives a list of kind of questions that can help you decide stakes for yourself. Stage 2, preparation. Once the brief is complete, doing this, if I go to my, oh, okay, I think I accidentally locked something. I was really worried, but when I checked on the normal camera app, everything was perfectly in focus. So sorry about that. I don't think you've really missed that much. So players can bring a mech on a mission along with, the list of pilot gear that we talked about last time. I guess for story reasons, you might, I guess, they've said that pretty much no matter what, you should have access to your unlocked gear, but, it's telling you to feel free. I mean, I think, it's kind of a fine line to walk, but, for story reasons, of course, it doesn't make sense to have access to your whole gear if you've crashed or something. So stage 3, reserves. The last thing to do before starting a mission is for the player to establish the reserves that their pilots are bringing on this mission. Reserves is an umbrella term for extra gear, ammunition, support, reinforcements, information, access, and everything else that pilots have available to them during the mission. Reserves are typically acquired during downtime. The pilots can also be granted them in the field. This seems like there should be. There are no specific rules governing what counts as reserves and what can be brought. This is just putting a lot of burden on the person running the game. I think there should be specific rules for this kind of thing. Especially when, you've already outlined specific rules for what you're actually bringing. Oh no. Seems very weak to me. So as long as the GM agrees that you can bring it with you, then you can have it as a reserve. We'll go ahead and look at the sample reserves. Downtime can be used to prepare reserves for the next mission. Reserves cover anything being held its advantage for the next mission, including extra supplies, gear, support, bonus, allies, and so on. The GM can grant reserves. Okay, that makes a little bit more sense, since it looks like the GM's deciding what you can count as reserve. Uh, the way it was described in the earlier section made it seem like a free-for-all, where it's just like you're going to have players trying to, squeeze every advantage in, just constantly hounding their GM as if they can have something as a reserve. In groups, patron give them extra supplies. Players can also ask for reserves by making downtime actions. Here are some examples of reserves and play. Just some examples. Some examples of different resources and examples of just like different bonuses for your mission. Establishing reserves before the mission starts is important because it clearly shows players and the GM what's available from the beginning. This prevents attempts to acquire items during the mission and arguments over who has what. Stage 4, boots on the ground. Once you've established all of this stuff, you arrive at the scene. The GM describes the situation. You're in the middle of action. I mean, it sounds like you've already done all your planning and stuff, so I don't know why. I don't know. It seems like a bit weird that you don't trust your players that much. I don't know. I think, feel free to ignore that bit of advice if you've got. But anyways, so you're on the ground in the middle of the mission. Doesn't necessarily be right in combat, yeah. Let's say the players have embarked on a mission to escort a refugee caravan. The GM could decide to start just as the caravan is ambushed, or instead you can, yeah, okay, that seems common sense. And then it gives you some examples. Stage 5, ending a mission and debrief. Once the mission ends, here's you debrief. You just, well, I mean, I think you'd want to go over it in character, but they say don't feel pressured to. And then you level up at the end of a mission, regardless of how you conducted yourself, and then, just kind of unpack what happened. Once you've gone boots on the ground, you're officially on a mission. You might abandon your goal, might have a twist. Narrative play versus mech combat. This part of a mission is more freeform. Combat is, of course, turn by turn. Different rules. So it's just like narrative play, even if you're having combat, it's just you're just doing skill checks, no turns. Everything's turn-based in combat. Okay, making skill checks. Narrative play skill checks are used to determine the outcome of complicated situation actions. We'll generally always succeed in mundane tasks. So you're only doing this for moving the story forward. Always making. You don't need to make a check to open the door, cook a meal, unless there's something complicating your attempt, or might change your relationship. So let's go the process of making a skill check, then your goal, consequences of failure are decided, decide if you've got any triggers that are activating, and then roll. So teamwork. If people want to help someone carry out your action, one person rolls, and that character gets a +1 bonus. No matter, even if 4 people help you, you only get +1, but if you fail, anyone helping suffers the consequences. So difficult, risky, and heroic rolls. Before you make a skill check, GM can decide if it's difficult, risky, or both. A difficult roll is harder than usual and adds a difficulty. A risky roll has clear and obvious complications even on a success. For example, if a pilot is trying to sneak in, it's risky because you might have a window to leave. When rolling a risky check, a character always suffer from some form of the consequences, even on a roll, on any roll under 20. A risky check still succeeds as usual, but the character suffers the consequences anyway. If an action is so hard or so outlandish, it's a heroic roll. Heroic roll is only successful on a result of 20 plus, and prepare to get your face slammed into concrete if you fail. I guess heroic rolls can still be difficult. Pilots that accomplish stuff are the stuff of legend. Can always decide a skill check can't be made under the current circumstances, or apply inappropriate triggers. Trying again and pushing it might not completely fail, but it does mean you have failed to accomplish your goal. You cannot attempt the same activity again unless the narrative circumstances have changed, like time passed, you got new gear, got a different idea, or additional help, or you push it. As long as a skill wasn't risky, you can make a second attempt. Consequences. A heroic check can never be pushed further. And if you take the second to check, it becomes risky. So when you roll less than 10 on a check or less than 20 on a risky check, you suffer the consequences. Since NPCs don't act on their own, these are the main, they must outline the consequences of failure before the roll. They can only inflict the consequences that they laid out. So consequences are complications, harm, time, takes longer, you use something up, someone else gets hurt, you're put in a worse position, you're less than effective, another harm example, Oh, again, these are like just more examples. So skill challenges. So when you're working together, it's a skill challenge. Everyone makes a relevant skill check. And if more players succeed than fail, you succeed. The same number of players. If you got a tie, it says to just flip a coin, which that doesn't feel exactly great to me, but I think like, yeah, whatever. Use your own judgment, intuition. Always had the benefit of initiative. Um, This means that the GM can't ask for rules until prompted by player action. To initiate a skill check, players must name a goal they hope to achieve. Then the GM can ask for a role. I do like this. It puts the referee in a very passive position. So combat and narrative play. Or like, yeah, they want it to be, quote, cinematic. Yeah, so it's just like you're doing a skill check with your combat stats. Don't worry about how much damage is dealt in narrative combat. If, you know, the amount of harm you do to something in the narrative combat is dealt by your goal. So if you're wanting to incapacitate them, yeah, okay. Hit points, damage, and injury. Pilot's HP is most relevant during mech combat, but you can get hurt and take damage as a result of complications. Minor damage is 1 or 2 damage, like being shot, stabbed. Major damage is 3 to 5. Which is like heavy weapons, long falls, gas, I don't know. The exposure to gas doesn't, I don't know. Whatever. Lethal damage, like if you're hit by a mech scale weapon or, yeah, just. Pilots can have an armor of 1 or 2, which is armor subtracted from any damage they take unless it's dealt by armor piercing. Down and out, if your pilot is ever reduced to 0, roll 1d6. On 6, your barely shrugs. That's pretty, oh, okay. So it's only on a 1, you die immediately. On 2 to 5, you're down and out, stunned, and you're at 0 HP. And if you take any more damage, you die. And on a 6, you're back in the fight at 1 HP. Then we've got this beautiful picture here. I only have a few minutes left. Let's see if we can just. Sure, I just don't have space for much downtime. There's always some downtime between missions, even if it's only hours. Prepare for the next mission, take actions, I'll shape the story. Structured in free form, downtime actions isn't just to prepare for the next mission, it's also for players who tell personal stories, advance, your personal plots, flesh out characters, can do as much free form making downtime. It's almost entirely narrative and usually doesn't focus on each moment of action depending on the situation. One role in downtime might cover any amount of time from an hour to a few months. As a general rule, outcomes should be informed by narrative context. A rule made for several months will have a greater effect than an action that only takes a few seconds. If you've got a few days of downtime, you might not become an expert if you're learning something, but but if you're like do something for 6 months, you might be, pretty good by your next mission. You can prepare reserves during downtime. Oh, we've already talked about this. So downtime actions. Unless you're doing a really long downtime, you only get one action per downtime. Unlike skill checks, downtime actions have specific outcomes depending on whether you succeed, fail, or roll 20 plus. And most ask you to choose from a list of possible outcomes. Triggers can still be used to get bonuses. Out the details. So here are the different downtime stuff. Power at a cost. Trying to look for something to power up. Get information. Buy some time. Get a drink. Get creative. Get focused. Get organized. Yeah. So just so I guess, yeah, so you'll be picking out the one you want to do, and then I guess I feel like I need to get a drink, so we'll read that one. When you get a drink, you blow off some steam, crowds, or generally get into trouble. You might be trying to make connections, collect gossip, forge a reputation, or even to forget what happened during your last mission. There's usually trouble. State your intention and roll. On a 9 or less, you decide whether you had a good time or not. You wake up in a gutter somewhere with only one remaining. Your dignity, all of your possessions, or your memory. This is very, and they probably aren't the only one who did. I think they're the most popular one. Blades in the Dark. This is very Blades in the Dark. On a 10 to 19, you gain one as reserves and lose one. A good reputation, a friend or connection. I do like this. I do like this a lot. This is the sort of thing I wish they did more. Instead of just like throwing all possible options at you. Friend connection, useful piece of information, a convenient opportunity. On 20 plus, gain 2 from the list of reserves and don't lose anything. You can only take this action where there's actually something to drink, like in a town or some other populated area. Okay, so now just a preview of our next section, which this looks very metal. Again, okay, but so I'm looking forward to this. So we'll get into the nitty gritty of mech combat next time. We do well, I don't know. I'm not sure what's happening with the network connection, but it looks like I'm offline, so I'll end here.